Hello and happy Thursday, Longhorns. I am joined by Matt Galatson, and we are 2 days away from the second Saturday in October, which is one of the greatest matchups in all of college football, the Red River Showdown. And the top-rated Texas Longhorns are taking on the 19th ranked Oklahoma Sooners in Dallas for the 120th time. Matt, this is such a massive matchup every single year, but this one feels a little bit different. I don't know if it's Texas and OU joining the SEC, but it's the most expensive ticket that tickets have ever been for the Red River Showdown. Can you speak a little bit about the excitement and the historic matchup between these two teams?
Well, I mean, it's obviously one of the best matchups in all of college football. Like you said, it's 120 years strong. The last, I think, since 1960, it's 31-31 and like three or something like that between the two of them. OU's had the edge over the last couple decades. I think they've won I think 11 of the last 15 or so. But this is Texas's opportunity to kind of get back and take control of the rivalry. They have the advantage. So it should be a good one for them. But this game is just something special. The atmosphere, the way the stadium's divided right down the middle. I used to go to this game when I was a kid with my dad almost every year, and I've seen just about everything that this rivalry has to offer, from blowouts and 30-degree weather to one possession games coming down to the end. And that's kind of how it's been the last, I think 9 of the last 10 games have been decided by a score. So it's always crazy. You can kind of throw the records out the window. You can throw the spread out the window. Um, it's just a really special game.
Absolutely, I agree. So the biggest news coming out of Austin is Quinn Ewers will be the starter on Saturday. And, it's been 2.5 games with the abdominal strain. How do you think getting Quinn Ewers back affects this team? And do you think there's any way he's rusty? And if that would play a part in this tough OU defense getting to Ewers?
Well, I think it certainly could be a factor. Ewers does have a history of injuries, but he also has a history of coming back from injuries and playing very well. So I don't know that that's going to go. I think it certainly could be a factor. Ewers does have a history of injuries, but he also has a history of coming back from injuries and playing very well. So I don't know that that's going to go very far into it. I think that he's going to be ready to play. He was probably ready to play against Mississippi State. They kind of held him out the last second. They said, you know what? I think we got this. We're going to let Arch go. Arch had a great game. And, it would have been nice to get him those reps in that game, but I think he's going to do just fine. He's got the best offensive line in the country in front of him. He's got a pretty good running game. He's got a deep group of receivers. He's got great tight end. So I think he'll be just fine. I think he's probably in for a big day.
Can you talk a little bit about the confidence within the team, knowing that, hey, either quarterback one, quarterback two, we can still win?
Yeah, that's a problem that not a lot of people have the fortune of having. John Madden used to say, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. Well, this is an exception to that rule, I think. Both quarterbacks are trusted by the team implicitly. Ewers is the leader, obviously, but they also know that they can rely on Arch. He showed that he can do just about everything from a throwing standpoint that Ewers can do. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't make the smart play necessarily all the time. He kind of tries to go for the big play a little bit more often, but that's also not necessarily a bad thing here and there. It's a very, very, very good problem to have when you have the number one quarterback from the 2021 class, I think it was, for Ewers, and then you have the number one quarterback from the 2023 class with Arch. Um, Two of the probably top 10 quarterbacks in the country, which is kind of crazy to say, on the same roster. And they push each other, which also helps a lot. They're best friends. They room together on before game night, all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a very good situation for them.
Even after missing 2 weeks, Quinn Ewers still has the eighth best odds to win the Heisman Trophy. I think that goes to show you just how great of football he was playing before the injury. And like you said, he plays his best ball in tough environments when the stakes are high. So we probably should not expect anything less than the best Quinn Ewers on Saturday. What are your biggest question marks from this team?
I think the first and foremost, it has to be with the running backs. You know, Jaden Blue was supposed to be the experienced guy that they could rely on and that could pop the big play, but he hasn't really popped a whole lot of big plays this year, and he had some fumble issues against Mississippi State. And they benched him, and he took responsibility for the benching, and he wants to get better, and that's a good thing. I think that it probably gives Quintravian Wisner an opportunity to shine. They might go a little bit more to him this week, but it's also extra motivation for Jaden. So it could go either way. That's probably their biggest question mark on offense. Defensively, I don't know that there's a whole lot of questions going into this game specifically. They had some things to clean up against Mississippi State. You know, they let a couple big plays go that they probably should have kept contained. But they had 2 weeks to work on that kind of stuff. And Oklahoma's offensive line is a kind of a mess right now, and it's their biggest weakness. And Texas has a pretty good defensive front. They've got one of the best pass rush units in the country right now. Colin Simmons, a true freshman, is just an absolute monster off the edge and on passing downs. And I think that, you know, going into the year, the defensive line was kind of a question mark for them because they lost Travondre Sweat, they lost Byron Murphy, and everybody wanted to know how they were going to fill that void. And Bill Norton and Tia Savea and Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins have all done a great job so far. It's not the same, but I still think it's going to be an advantage for them against Oklahoma, especially, you know, given the 2 weeks that they've had to kind of shore up those issues they had against Mississippi State. And that's where the bye week kind of comes into play. I mean, you don't necessarily want to sort of, you know, cut off your momentum after you start 5-0 necessarily, but they were a little banged up and they kind of needed that time to heal up and fix those issues. So I think it's going to work out pretty well for them. And then, you know, they've got Georgia next week. So you would have liked for that bye week to probably come after Oklahoma and before Georgia, but it is what it is, and they're going to be okay there.
Absolutely. And on the other end of that, OU is extremely banged up. They're missing their top receiver, but then they're missing four other receivers. They're just having a nightmare over there. Another big challenge for the Longhorns is going to be OU quarterback Michael Hawkins Jr., who was picked over Jackson Arnold. And what makes Hawkins a threat is that he can not only throw the ball, but he can run the ball. I think in his first 3 games, he has over 100 yards. And he's actually the first true freshman to start for OU in this entire rivalry. Can you speak on preparations, what they might look like for Texas, the defense, in order to stop him from creating those explosive plays?
Well, it's always difficult with a running quarterback. And you know, Sark talked about it today with a guy that can run, you can kind of prepare for that. With a guy that can throw, you can kind of prepare for that. With a guy that can do both, it's very difficult. And they feel like Hawkins can do both because, you know, you want your linebackers to kind of be able to make their decisions during a play without, you know, having any second thought. But when you have a guy like that, these guys don't know, like, okay, should I push up and play him on the run or should I drop back and play for the pass? He can kind of dice you up either way. And that's an issue. He's definitely their best weapon, I think, going into this game. They've got good running backs, which, you know, is going to play a big role and it's going to help him a lot. But he's definitely a different player than Jackson Arnold. And Jackson could run. Jackson is, as far as arm talent is concerned, is an excellent quarterback. He just kind of, you know, fell off a little bit and they decided to go in a different direction. But, you know, I think that there's only so many things you can do to prepare for somebody like that because you run your scout team offense and you put a mobile guy back there against your number one defense and they can only simulate so much of what that guy can actually do. And it's definitely going to be a challenge for them. The Mississippi State quarterback Van Buren last week had some good plays on them with his legs. And it's definitely a cause for concern. I think that the fact that his top 5 wide receivers are all out of the game, which is just an absolutely crazy thing, is definitely going to play well into Texas's hands and being able to control him. But it'll be interesting to see if they have the same kind of issues with him that they had with Van Buren. I don't think they necessarily will, just because of that receiver issue. But it's always something you have to keep count of.
Sticking to defense, obviously, Brent Venables is one of the great defensive minds in college football. So let's talk about OU defensive back Billy Bowman Jr. He's a fourth year, which is so rare nowadays. And he was once a Texas commit. He's a big key. I'd say, the biggest piece to this OU defense. He's such a great player. What are you looking from this Texas offense in order to stop him, take him out of the game so that Texas can score some points?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to him and obviously Danny Stutzman, the linebacker. They're both tremendous players. My friend Brooks Austin, who's the director of recruiting at Sports Illustrated, did a great job breaking down that entire matchup between the Texas offense and the Oklahoma defense from last year. Everybody should go watch it. The film guy, it's incredible. But you know, he's definitely an X factor for them. I think that the thing is that I think Texas has the bigger X factor that kind of washes that out with Quinn Ewers because of his experience and those kinds of things.
What do you think made Quinn Ewers so much better this season?
Steve Sarkisian. He last year you could see him getting better from game to game. He had an incredible game against Alabama, but it wasn't perfect. He had many more incredible games. I mean, he set a Big 12 championship record for passing yards. Um, but the games that he thinks about are the Oklahoma game and the Washington game, where maybe he wasn't necessarily at his best from the opening kick until the end of the game. And he took all that and he worked on it with Steve Sarkisian and he developed his confidence and his ability to read the defenses and all those little things that he had to do to get ready for the next level, while also hoping to get Texas to where they want to go, which is obviously playing in late January for the national championship game. So I, Texas has the best quarterback developer in the country in Steve Sarkisian, and I think that that's got to be the biggest factor in why Quinn is who Quinn is.
Absolutely. So, as we've seen time and time again, the matchup always exceeds expectations, even when we're not really expecting it. The last 9 of 11 meetings have been decided by one score. What are your keys for both Texas and OU to come away with the Golden Hat?
I think OU, for them to win this game, they have to keep it low scoring. They have to make Texas play sloppy. They have to force turnovers. They have to create short fields for their offense, and Michael Hawkins can't make mistakes. Um, they have to turn it into a very, very, very ugly game. As I heard Greg McElroy call it, describe it earlier. It's a very good description for what Oklahoma needs to do. Sort of like what Arkansas did with Tennessee this past weekend. Because Oklahoma is not going to win a shootout. They don't have the receivers, they don't have the playmakers. And Texas, really all they need to do is control the game, control the line of scrimmage, play clean. And I think they'll be all right. They're going to be able to pop some big plays against this Oklahoma defense if they're playing well, because Oklahoma has a tendency to give up those big plays. And so far this season, Texas has done a very good job, better than they've done in the past, even with Worthy and Mitchell and Sanders and all that stuff of connecting on those big plays. Um, Against Mississippi State, that score should have been 52-13, but they had a couple turnovers and they had a drop touchdown by Jonte Cook. They had the points taken off the board with the field goal where they decided to go for it after the penalty. So those kinds of things can't happen. And as long as they play clean, I think that they win pretty comfortably.
So, what's your score prediction?
Oh gosh, I hate making a score prediction on this game because it's
You
it's
never know
never
what's going to
like,
happen.
yeah. Um, I it, I mean, dating back to 2021 with Sark's first game in this series, I expected Oklahoma to win that game. And then Texas came out and went up 35-7. And I was like, wow, I was totally wrong. And then Oklahoma stormed all the way back because of Caleb Williams and won the game. The next year, I was like, okay, this one's going to be pretty tight. It's 49-0 Texas. And then last year, I thought that they were by far the two best teams in the conference, and it was going to be a great game. But the way that that game ended and the way that that game played out was not what I expected at all. Um, so I hate to say I have no idea because I have to make a prediction, obviously, for this and for some work we're doing later. But if I had to put a number on it, I would probably say if Texas plays their best football, I think they win 38-17. If it's an ugly game and Oklahoma makes it real difficult on them, it's probably, I still think Texas has a very good chance to win that in that scenario. And it's probably something like the Tennessee score with Oklahoma, where it's like 27-17 or 28-21, like something in that area. Um, but we'll go with, I guess, 38-17 Texas.
Okay, yeah, I'm picking Texas 35-14. At first I wanted to go much bigger, but that's what makes it one of the best rivalries in all of college football, aside from the storied programs. It's just you never know what's going to happen in Dallas. So definitely picking Texas to win. Thank you so much for joining me, Matt. Kickoff between Texas and OU is at 2:30 Central Time in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. Thanks so much for watching.